Welcome to Lesson 2 in Europe, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, part of our Fish in the Den pictography. Let me introduce you to a happily married couple named Mr. and Mrs. Ichthus. Mr. Ichthus loves to chomp on ice, especially while watching the big game in their den. But Mrs. Ichthus doesn't want him to bring ice in their den, and so she explains to her hubby, "No way, no way, sweetie Finn, no ice in the den." The country of Norway is Mrs. Ichthus, since she is always saying, "No way." We notice that even though Mrs. Ichthus always says, "No way" to Mr. Ichthus about bringing ice in their den, she always says it really nicely. She says it like, "No way, sweetie Finn," because Sweetie Finn is Mrs. Ichthus's pet name for her hubby. Sweden, sweetie, sweetness is always found in between Mr. and Mrs. Ichthus as the blue area under Sweden's flag. We remember Sweden is the first part of Mr. Ichthus's pet name, Sweetie Finn. Finland is the second part of his pet name, Sweetie Finn, where Finland is illustrated as Mr. Ichthus. The sentence we need to remember to learn all the countries of our Fish in the Den pictography is, "No way, Sweetie Finn, no ice in the den." In this lesson, we learned that the country of Norway is Mrs. Ichthus, who always says, "No way." We also learned that Sweden is the blue area between Mr. and Mrs. Ichthus, and that Finland is Mr. Ichthus himself.
Capitals: Oslo, Stockholm, Helsinki. To remember Oslo, Mr. Ichthus wants to sneak his ice past the watchful eye of the Mrs. Norway. Since she is always telling him, "No way," he must keep his ice low to stay under the radar of Mrs. Ichthus, Norway. So, having to keep his ice low helps us remember that Oslo is the capital of Norway, Mrs. Ichthus. To remember Stockholm. Since Mrs. Ichthus, Norway, went ahead and uninstalled the ice maker, now Mr. Ichthus must travel to the blue area under Sweden's flag between him and Mrs. Ichthus, which we know is Sweden. It is in this blue area, Sweden, that Mr. Ichthus, Finland, purchases lots and lots of ice so he can attempt yet again to stock his home with ice. So traveling to Sweden to stock his home with ice helps us remember that Stockholm is the capital of Sweden. To remember Helsinki. Mr. Ichthus tries many different ways to bring and keep ice in the den. On the occasions when he is successful in bringing ice into the den, he'll sink it quickly in water under the den before Mrs. Ichthus finds it. Now, since Mr. Ichthus's only successful strategy is he'll sink it, this can help us remember he'll sink it, Helsinki is the capital of Finland, Mr. Ichthus. Final review. What is the name of Mrs. Ichthus that always says, "No way"? What is her capital, where she causes her hubby to keep his ice low? What is the name of the blue area between them, the first part of his pet name, Sweetie Finn? What is its capital, where hubby goes to stock his home with ice? What is the name of Mr. Ichthus, the last part of Sweetie Finn? What is its capital, where Mr. Ichthus's only successful strategy is he'll sink it, Great job!